Hello, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to another episode of Alaska Leaping Forward, a weekly podcast put together to explain the 10-year transition plan and how we can use that as an economic primer to not only address our social and environmental issues, but to do so in a fashion that can gain broad-based support from both conservatives and liberals. So it's basically an economic plan, a political plan, a social plan. It does serve as all of these things and none. So in this episode of this half-hour forum, which we put on 4:30 weekly, basically is going to talk about two things that are important, but something we're not going to be able to cover a lot in more detail because I decided to that the best venue for this was through the nonprofit, the Alliance for Reason and Knowledge, which has been the foundation for the work that's manifested this. And while there are political components and religious undertone, as a 501c3, we're not supposed to, or we can't really get involved in either one of those activities. And what I've learned is that the core way we're not supposed to be involved, and which we haven't been involved to maintain our integrity, is simply the financial contributions to either group. So what I wanted to do was take the opportunity today to talk about the two things that nonprofits don't normally talk about, that many people in polite society say you don't talk about. But the two things that seem to be driving everything that we do and are at the root of everything that we're trying to accomplish and everything that's holding us back. So today, I dedicate this show to politics and religion and the 10-year plan. So, my name is Robert Shields. I'm the executive director of a nonprofit called the Alliance for Reason and Knowledge. This is a manifestation of what I have been trying to do as a way to empower others, to change the world, to give them the tools to do what I've been able to do, and to basically not accept reality the way it is, and to do something about it. And I have recently uncovered and was reminded that that is how one person can change the world, and does so every day. So let me reiterate. One person can and does change the world every day simply by committing to not accepting the world the way it is and doing something about it. This is a commitment that I made 20 years ago and is something that I've been working on and trying to figure out how to not only to do myself but to empower others. The Alliance for Reason and Knowledge was the latest manifestation of that. The creation of the 10-year plan to move Alaska beyond fossil fuels over the next 10 years in 5 stages is also part of that. So I'm broadcasting it live on Facebook, and then I'll be posting it onto the Alliance for Reason and Knowledge YouTube channel. So please hit the subscribe button to be kept informed of when the next video is coming up, and we might also be adding more content as our abilities increase. So thank you for joining us. There are 2 episodes that are already out. This is Season 1, Episode 3. And essentially, so, religion. Now, for the most part, I believe that we were all created to evolve. So, that's where I come from and where I start at. And what I have learned in being a Baptist and a Seventh-day Adventist and a Catholic and Baha'i, and growing up with parents who were into Wiccanism, and also recognizing that's part of my path, and then discovering the Celestine prophecy and recognizing that we are all on an evolutionary path of understanding consciousness and understanding how, in being aware of our consciousness, we can actually and do manipulate and change the world around us every day. Even the technology that I'm using to communicate with you today began as an idea in somebody's mind. And they held so firm to that it had no choice but to eventually manifest in reality. And that's why I created a show called Alaska Leaping Forward, a focus on a promise of a 10-year plan that if we commit to looking into the future, that we can bring about the kind of future we want because we're actively in the process of creating it. So, in regards to the concept of religion, I find that the definitions between religion and spirituality are that spirituality is an individual's personal pursuit to understanding themselves, the universe, and connecting with their higher power, however they choose to define that. By comparison and contrast, religion, in my view, is simply a group of people who worship together and share similar beliefs. This is good because we're social animals. Everything has its limits, and I think that our understanding of spirituality and religion has also evolved. And I think that we're taking a leap into that, where people are actually focusing on, that spiritual component, that nurturing their abilities and their higher selves in that relationship. I think this is very important for people, and I think that it's going to help us out as a society to become more peaceful and prosperous. So it's a good thing. But it can be misconstrued. And far too often, good ideas, especially by people who don't understand them and thus are afraid of them, they try to vilify them, and they go to extremes sometimes to make what they don't understand and what they come to hate look bad, and unfortunately it just makes them look bad. But they get blinded by it they get so blinded by it they don't see. So it's important in the beginning of understanding this 10-year plan and trying to actually implement it, that there is a spiritual component. The 10-year plan is based on permaculture principles. Permaculture principles are a modern interpretation of indigenous wisdom that allows us to connect with each other and to connect with the world around us. And I think that by doing that, and by aligning our economic practices and our political policies with natural systems and permaculture principles, we will be able to thrive 100 times more than we are now. And it begins with making the transition beyond a fossil fuel economy. Again, this is not to say that Alaska is not going to have fossil fuel industry in its future beyond 10 years. This is specifically looking at our ability to generate the energy that we need for electricity, heating, and transportation in the state, in our communities. This will basically allow us to send more of the resources that we produce here out of state, thus generating more revenue. And I'm an ecologist. I want to support a lot of social causes, but first and foremost, I'm an economist. And I believe that prosperous individuals are profitable just because they inspire innovation, and that moves us forward. That creates new ideas, and that is profitable. I think that we too narrowly define profit as just dollars and cents, and this is a very dangerous thing because it's become a religion. People seek out money, and money changes people. It can do that for the good, it can do it for the evil, depending on the people and depending on the circumstances on how they came into it and what they plan on doing with it. For myself, I spent the first half of my life dirt poor, so I've made a decision to spend the rest of my life becoming and maintaining a lifestyle of being filthy rich. And what I mean by that is I'm not looking to build a big house other than what I need for my family and to be able to provide for them comfortably. Beyond that, I want to help others thrive, because I think that in the long run, that's the most profitable for me, is to have the people around me prosperous too. And you can take that any way you want, good, bad, but it's all good. Something I think is good, something I'm investing in. That's what I've done for the last decade. Is I've invested roughly $40,000 a year for the last 8 years to get to where I'm at now, so we can have this conversation. It hasn't been an easy road, and it's taken a lot of faith. There were times when I felt like a fool, and I was treated as such. To some degree I am today. But I no longer care, because I have faith in myself, and I have faith in the path that I've chosen to walk, that this is the path for me. And sharing that path and walking that path, I already have been told that I've been an inspiration to others. And that's what I want to do. That's real profit to me. That's what makes me really get out of bed in the morning and want to do this. So thank you to Willow King and to all the others who have expressed their appreciation. And I'll keep doing at it, and it is my honor to serve. But in regards to the topic of religion and as it portrays to the 10-year plan, we have a petition out. You can go to causes.com. You can find the links in the YouTube videos and on the Facebook. I do what I can to make it accessible. From there, you can sign a petition for commitment to the 10-year plan. We're looking at reaching 100. I just launched it the other day. I think we're up to like 4 or 5, but seeds always start out small. Anyway, in regards to the topic of religion and the 10-year plan, this isn't a cult, but we're looking for a following. We're not trying to establish a church or a religion, but there is something, especially the first step with taking the leap, which is very personal, which is deeply moving on many levels. And for some people may be difficult because it might require that they challenge and reevaluate their belief systems. And I believe, and I always have, that strong belief systems are a good thing. Their strength is tested by the world when they're reevaluated. Holding on to a belief system just because it makes you feel comfortable is not necessarily the best thing. Crutches are really wonderful when your foot's broken. A quick update. I mentioned in the last show that I hurt my foot falling off a ladder, but fortunately nothing's broken. Swelling's back down. Still hobbling a little, but it works. But anyway, back to the topic at hand. Having a little faith is a good thing, but this is not a religious movement. Okay. So now on to the other fun topic of politics. This is only a half-an-hour show, so we can't really cover too much in detail, but I am trying to create a conversation, looking to have some guests here in the future. So if you guys have any questions, please leave them in the comments section. Let me know, and I will try to incorporate that into future shows. And if it's something that a lot of people want to hear off of, it may become a show in itself. We'll just have to see how that works out. So, on to politics. Some say that politicians, they don't do everything, but they can make everything happen or prevent it from happening. And what I've come to understand that means is that the professional relationships that people in these positions nurture allow them to understand what's going on in the economic realm of their community, and they try to support that by putting forth good policy. That can be a really good thing. One of the challenges that we have, I think, especially in Alaska, which is part of the reason that roughly 85% of our population, our voting population, doesn't show up, is because it has become commonplace to believe that our electoral process has been usurped by corporate interest. And essentially what we have is a bunch of corporations that throw their money behind politicians they want to see elected, and by doing so guarantee the policies that are going to benefit their corporations. Now, I think that capitalism has its place in our society. I think that we would be doing a lot better if those capitalists would understand that having a conscience is profitable too, and that by protecting the environment, that's profitable too. That's sustaining your resources. That's maximizing your assets because nature is regenerative. And it has a lot of value to offer without ever being disturbed. So we'll get there. But anyway, but politicians often can move us in those directions, and that's why it's so important to vote. But it's more importantly to also vote with your dollar, to be out there and look in your wallet and make sure that when you spend, you're casting a vote for the type of world you want to live in. Make sure it's the right one, or make sure that what you're buying is in alignment. And I know it can be difficult, And there are great people out there that are trying to work on bringing more products to the, market that will help us become more self-reliant. As we become aware of them, as we're able to, we'll incorporate and let you guys know some about that. And that's part of the 10-year plan, is we are already making progress. We're already moving in that direction. And part of the ways that we know we'll get there is by identifying exactly how we'll, what's going on right now. I will give you one example, and that is the fact that not only does this town have one Sunshine Health Food store, it has two. And this is a very good thing, because it means that there's enough people in this town that vote with their wallets, that they want to take care of themselves, that they value themselves enough to realize that they need to take care of their health. And I think that's a very important thing, and especially in our society, because modern consumption behavior does not encourage us to, actually discourages us to feel good about ourselves and to accept ourselves the way we are and to value ourselves. The reason it does that is it's an unintentional side effect of trying to push that consumer demand. If we thought the dress that we have on is pretty enough, we won't buy another one. And I use the dress specifically because fashion is one of the biggest areas where consumption wins out over common sense almost every time. I've seen some people go out in very poor weather in some very inappropriate clothes because it makes them look stylish and fashion. And unfortunately here in Alaska, sense of fashion can often cost you toes or fingers, and nobody wants that. So again, one of the reasons I come to Alaska is because the different world we live in allows us and kind of forces us to see the world from a different area. And it also goes to our politicians and our politics, especially local politics. I've mentioned before that Fairbanks is kind of an island in and of itself, and so the politicians, they live here with us. I've had the mayor in my little house here. I've had other people here, and I've been to their homes, and we talk over coffee and chat on Facebook, and you don't get that in bigger cities, understandably so, which is why a lot of people want to live here, despite the high cost of energy and the low quality of life. But politics and policy is important to understand in this discussion, just like religion is because these are the things that move us. We are passionate, emotional people. We first go with our emotion, and then we will spin all kinds of facts, do all kinds of research, and use whatever tools we can to justify that investment for ourselves and why others should invest in it too. So religion and politics are both important, but they also need to be kept in scope that they're social tools for us to engage each other. They're ways for us to build the bonds of fellowship, and they're ways for us to come together. Because an atheist and a devout Christian both breathe the same air. For the most part, they eat the same food, and they drive on the same streets. That means that the things that we have in common are more important and more plentiful than the things that divide us. And when we're looking to the future and we're looking to set examples for our children, that, I believe, is the lesson that we need to pass on. And it's not a lesson that many of us have been taught, which makes it very difficult to teach to our children and to those who we influence in the world. But that's why we do things like put this show on, those who can, and those like the gentleman behind me who found that music can heal the world. So I'll be really looking into trying to get some music into the show, to the title and the background and stuff. We'll just see how it goes. But I appreciate you staying with me for another week. And we'll be back next week and talking about the 10-year plan more. Our 10-year plan to move the Alaska beyond the fossil fuel industry. 5 stages: the LEAP Manifesto, eco districts, the transition network, the blue economy, and the Venus Project, a resource-based economy. These are all tools that we can use if we choose to reach for the stars and to reach for our highest potential. Religion and politics are an important part of our societies and shouldn't be compartmentalized. But they also shouldn't dictate policy when it regards to common sense, especially when we live on a planet where so many people have so many different religions and have so many different political positions. We can't hope to understand each other. We can all just do what we want for ourselves and try to understand so they can understand us. I believe that this simple effort to reach across the aisle and have a cup of coffee with somebody you don't understand can help you. If you could do it peacefully, the more extreme the better, because that'll help shake things up for you. So with the last few minutes, what I would like to do is to share with some of you folks some of the books that have been an inspiration to me and that I find are going to be most helpful in putting some of this together and actually helping people adopt this for their own lives, as well as to help the communities adopt these as policies. So to begin with, I've mentioned this before. So this is the Blue Economy. Pollard Gunty, you can see it right here. Yeah, okay. So 10 years, this is another reason where we came up with the idea of a 10-year plan, which, by the way, we is the board of directors for my nonprofit and the steering committee for the Green Party of Alaska. The Green Party of Alaska was very instrumental this year in helping me focus and figure out exactly how to frame some of these discussions and what needed to happen. We know it's economically based, but we also know that policy drives it. And we know that policy is driven by the social pressures that are put on it. And the social pressures are really defined by the environment we live in. So, 10 years, 100 innovations, 100 million jobs. That's a job for every single living Alaskan. But do we want jobs? Or do we want ways to create life? There's a difference. So, beyond that, let's see here. Okay, so the foundation of all civilization is food. And so one of the ways that I've been looking at bringing together energy and waste and economy and society and health and, you know, all of the different elements of society, which in a capsule looks like a space shuttle or a space station or a colony on another planet, led me to the discovery of this little gem, the vertical farm. Something that started out a decade ago, here we go back to 10 years, by a few students in a classroom at Columbia University, has now become a fundamental driving force in our world for urban development. And beyond the ability of these communities to grow their own food, these technologies and the ideas behind them that they're inspiring are really revitalizing the entire economics system of the community, especially downtown. And we have a particular building here at Fairbanks, the old Polaris Hotel, which unfortunately is probably past its useful date, but the property, the location, if we were to build a vertical farm there, a mixed-use development where we could have some retail and maybe some office buildings upstairs and a new complex, all green and net zero, would be a beacon, I think, to the rest of the world. Would be a beacon to investors that Alaska is ready for innovation. Alaska's doors are open for business for the 21st century. We can do that. And I think it's a key to our being able to provide for the quality of life for the Alaskans who call this place home. So, one of my business inspirations came from Sir Richard Branson in reading his book, beautifully titled Screw Business as Usual. And essentially, this is important because this goes back to what I was saying earlier, that one person can change the world by not accepting the way it is. Screw business as usual is an economic term used to say that I'm not accepting this is the best we can do. That the economic principles, what we define as profit, how we invest our time and resources in a traditional manner, it may have served us and got us to where we are, but it won't get us to where we want to go. And in order to get there, we're going to have to find some new pathways to do it. So the book's full of innovations on how we can do that. So along with that, I've got books here. So along with that is the idea of the third industrial revolution, or the clean tech revolution. There's another book I had that that got destroyed that specifically talks about this, titled The Third Industrial Revolution. This one's just as good, and it talks about the diversification of technologies, energy sources. It talks about the scalability, how 3D printers and other such technologies are actually driving forces, and how the clean energy technology sector is a tremendously popular area for growth, especially for investments. And so that's something that's been inspiring for me. And then finally, actually not finally, here I got two more here for you. Two more real quick for you here. Okay, so energy is something that we've been talking a lot about, and is the core of the 10-year plan. Not that energy is the only thing we want to solve, but we recognize, especially here in Alaska, that the choices that we make in energy reverberate from everything from the cost of living to the quality of life. So always looking for new tools and ways to create new energy systems, and we have this one here, Power to the People. And basically, this is a really good book. Excuse me. This is a really good book for community organizing and for helping people develop local democratic energy systems. This is an economic tool that empowers people to take back a system which many believe is broken. But you have to show up. You have to sign a petition. You have to do your homework. I know it's difficult when you've already worked 2 jobs and you've got 3 kids screaming in the background. But those who can should try. That's what I'm doing. If I waited to have every perfect resource and have all the time in the world, myself and a lot of other people wouldn't have the time to do the things they do. We make sacrifices. Sacrificing the game or a video game or a self-indulgence is a sacrifice if it's used for a higher purpose, like investing in your kids or their future. So I will leave you with one thing. We're going into and talking about money and financing. Money as a tool, money as a source of energy. As a source of energy, I have mistakenly repelled it, thinking that it has some mystic power or that it can corrupt people like some horrible possessed doll. But just like a gun, it's a tool. We can use it to protect and build people up, or we can use it to tear things down. So the last book put on your weekly reading list here is going to be Local Dollars, Local Cents. Developing local economies, especially paper economies, where people are working together. So if anything does happen on a global level, as far as financial markets go, the local communities will be far more resilient because they have a local economy that's already backing them up. And right now, a lot of people are concerned because our current fiat economy isn't based on anything but a bunch of empty promises by a bunch of greedy corporations who are just looking to get as much profit as fast as possible. And they don't care who they hurt in the meantime. And unfortunately, we have to deal with these people. We will. But for now, it's important that we build a system that protects us and isolates us from these kind of short-term decisions so that we aren't affected on them when they eventually come crumbling down. So it's been a pleasure meeting with you and talking with you for another week. I would like to invite anybody who would like to try to be out there with me to come on as a guest and just turn this monologue into a dialogue so we can get more perspective on here and help explain how this is actually going to help people and why they should embrace it. So again, this has been Robert Shields with the Alliance for Reason and Knowledge, and this has been Season 1, Episode 3 of Alaska Leaping Forward. Thank you, and have a good week. Oh, Stay beautiful.